Let's go straight to Pretoria now, where we're joined from our studio there by the Public Protector, Thuli Madonsela. Advocate Madonsela, good evening, and thank you very much for coming in. Legally speaking, can this report be downplayed or considered alongside other reports on Nkandla, or must it be dealt with point for point, finding for finding?
It has to be decided on its own. Of course, the task team report can be considered by government in its own right, but this report did not be compared with that one because the task team was an internal report.
The reason I ask that is because we've had that response from Jeff Radebe, speaking on behalf of government, saying that it stands by its position that all the upgrades were necessary for the president's security, something which obviously contradicts certain aspects of your report.
Well, it's not just contradicted by my report, it is contradicted by the minutes of the minutes of the project team. The minutes of the project team will indicate that some of those items were not security items.
Advocate Madonsela, I just want to talk very quickly just about one point that seems to have encapsulated or captivated people's attention around this issue, and it's about this fire pool / swimming pool. Your team was on the ground there. Can you definitively say that it was in fact a swimming pool?
It is a swimming pool. Government has not denied that it's a swimming pool. Government has simply said it's a swimming pool that is meant to have a dual purpose: fire and entertainment or recreation for the family. However, in terms of the minutes of the project committee, it was initially just meant to be a fire pool, and then they decided they would convert it into a swimming pool at the owner's expense.
All right, let's talk about some of your recommendations, Advocate Madonsela. The President himself has to pay back some of this money, the price tag of which will be determined in conjunction with the Treasury. How soon are they legally expected to act on that?
The President is supposed to advise Parliament within 14 days of the decision he has taken on my findings and what he intends to do with the remedial action I've asked him to take.
Your report goes on to say that Zuma was wearing two hats, one as guardian of public resources, another as beneficiary of the same, and he failed to discharge his responsibility in terms of the latter. That's a pretty damning statement. And against that particular backdrop, Advocate Madonsela, is it simply too simple to ask that he only pay back the money when it's clear that this is more than just about money, but about ethics and stewardship?
It is certainly about ethics and stewardship, but primarily because of that, then the ethical decisions are left to him. He has to reflect on what I've said and then make a decision as the head of the executive and the person who should be concerned about ethical conduct regarding what he intends to do with my findings and remedial action.
It's on that point, Advocate Madonsela, that some constitutional law analysts and speakers have been concerned that perhaps this report in some ways will be minimized. In terms of that, because your report talks about the President should have ordered an immediate inquiry when it became known in 2009 how far these costs were being overrun. He should have asked those whose ideas some of these upgrades were but didn't. Is there scope beyond your report for this particular matter to be dealt with further?
I have played my part. It is now up to several parties to play their part. I've given a copy to the President. I've given a copy to the Joint Ethics Committee in Parliament. They too will look at it and say, in terms of their overall understanding of ethical governance, what would they expect from the President? Even though Parliament has retired, members of Parliament remain members of Parliament until the elections. Therefore, members of that committee may still informally look at the report.
Speaking of parliamentary processes, there was a call by the DA on the back of your report calling for the President to be impeached over this. What is your reaction to that?
Of course, for me, I never asked that the president should be impeached. I have steered away from what should be done regarding conduct failure. I really leave it to the president, to the complainants, the Joint Committee on Ethics, and the people of South Africa regarding how to take the process forward.
It's at this point, Advocate, that I think it's probably worth maybe zooming out of today's developments and just look at the broader context in which it manifested itself. Your office has been under considerable pressure for reports finding adversely against the IEC, for example, the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, the former Communications Minister, Dina Pule. Are you worried that you personally, that your days as Public Protector are numbered?
I'm not worried about my days. I am worried about my office though, because there have been attempts to delegitimize the office. It has an impact on my staff because they work hard as young lawyers and not so young lawyers. They work hard to help me with these investigations. When people attack the office, they are attacking the investigators that have applied their mind together with me on these investigations.
Do you have any expectations or concerns, Advocate Madonsela, that this report will not be taken seriously in light of skepticism we've seen from the Defence Minister, from Lindiwe Sisulu, from the ANC's Gwede Mantashe, that it will be considered nothing more than a political report?
Well, firstly, it's wrong to consider it as politics. I have indicated that I've played my part. If people have any concerns, they must engage me. I can sit down with them and show them evidence. In the report, we have tried as far as possible to include the evidence. Where the president said something, where somebody said at the minutes, the president had said something or was expected to say something, we have included it in the report. So we've made it easy for people to evaluate this report on its merits. There's no point really in politicizing it.
What for you at your office, Advocate Madonsela, has been the hardest part in putting this investigation together?
The unwarranted attacks were hard. The report itself involved a lot of work. If we had been a commission of inquiry, we would have been given enormous resources to do the same work. In my case, I was expected to do everything on my own. Also, the saddest part for me, though, was the fact that as the enforcer of ethics, I felt as if it was left to me to determine the rules. My understanding was that government makes the rules. I had expected some concessions. I was totally saddened, actually shocked by the fact that nobody came forward and said, we missed a spot. And in this particular matter, we apologize and we intend to do things differently going forward. Because that's what is ethics about. It's about people accepting the rules that they themselves created, accepting the moral values that underpin those rules, and sometimes being the first to say, I was wrong.
Perhaps the final thing I can put to you, Advocate Madonsela, is, are you relieved it's over?
I am relieved that it is over. However, there's many other reports that we have to ensure that they are out before the 31st of March, and many of them are not seen as glamorous, but the persons affected by them want them as of yesterday.
All right, we'll let you go. It's been a hard day for you. Thank you so much for your time, for accommodating us. Appreciate that. Public Protector Thuli Madonsela joining us there from Pretoria. As you know, she delivered her report on Nkandla, 3.5-hour report a little earlier in the day.
Know more about your world. eNCA.com.